Star Wars 7x7 episode 2665. All right, we're 2 weeks into this new program that's happening called Bring Home the Bounty, and there haven't been any especially big reveals yet, but a couple of very tantalizing hints, and so I'll dig into what's happening from the news perspective on that front today. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So when we cover what's coming in a given month in the world of Star Wars, one of the categories that we often cover is merchandise, and often there's not a lot to cover, but around this time of year, something usually does happen, and we didn't get any word or indication that anything was coming down the pike, but suddenly it did. This Bring Home the Bounty situation is happening, and it is a 12-week initiative. Here is the official deal about it. It says every Tuesday, BringHomeTheBounty.com will reveal new products inspired by everything from the Book of Boba Fett, premiering exclusively on Disney Plus December 29th, to The Mandalorian, the Skywalker Saga, animated series, and much more. Check StarWars.com each week for a few of the major releases headed to this galaxy, then get your tracking fobs ready. Oh, wink, wink. Here's the thing about it. They have the 12 weeks set up with little icons and fun stuff. So far, the 2 weeks that have been revealed don't seem to translate to what is being depicted. So for example, there was a big Stormtrooper helmet icon for week 1, but when you looked through the actual list of products that they were revealing, it didn't seem like it was all or even mostly Stormtrooper related. There were a couple of Stormtrooper things interspersed with the entirety of the products that they were revealing, but yeah, definitely not Stormtrooper themed overall. And this week, just on Tuesday the 19th, yesterday, the Mandalorian's helmet was the big icon there. And yeah, there were a couple of Mandalorian things in there, like the Art of the Mandalorian, which, you know, we've already heard about elsewhere, Mando Season 2, right? And a couple of Mandalorian helmets and a Ronin kind of inspired translation of the Mandalorian's armor with Grogu and a little pram instead of his hover pod, you know, that sort of thing. But yeah, as a group, for all the things that were revealed, really not particularly Mandalorian focused. In fact, the thing that really jumped out at me was that they made a bunch of action figures inspired by the Star Wars Droids cartoon, including a Boba Fett and a 3PO and an R2-D2 from that cartoon from back in the 80s, which is very cool in its own right. But yeah, overall, like, it's, you know, not really Mando themed. Now, looking ahead, Bo-Katan's helmet is featured in week 3, except there was a Bo-Katan figure in the week 1 releases. So yeah, and just, you know, based on all that other stuff that I just mentioned, it's hard to see how it's going to be particularly Bo-Katan focused. And then Ahsoka is the figure for week 4, and there's a bunch of Ahsoka stuff actually in this week that just came out yesterday, so I don't know. But there are some interesting choices that they have for the icons for the rest of the campaign. I'll say that weeks 5 and 6 feature Rex and Grogu, and although it's cool, it doesn't necessarily, you know, pique interest in the same way that something like the Tusken Raider for week 7 does. You know, you just kind of want to jump to conclusions about something like that. And certainly there's a Mandalorian tie because of Chapter 9, the Marshal, right? But there's also, of course, the General Tatooine tie and then the Obi-Wan Kenobi tie. So you kind of want to jump into that conclusion. But again, because of the way the first 2 weeks have shaken out compared to what helmets they were offering as the icons representing those weeks, yeah, it's probably a stretch. And there's a Gonk droid wrapped up in a bow for week 8, which is fun. And, you know, mine jumps to Gonky from the Bad Batch or from the Gonk droid walking around inside the Sandcrawler, but who knows? I think the reason why I'm kind of inclined to think that there's something to the icons that they're showing, that there has to be some sort of logic driving it, is week 9 has the 50th anniversary logo, or at least a part of it, for the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm, and it's actually taking place during the week that Lucasfilm's 50th anniversary actually is. So yeah, it makes sense. Like, that is actually actionably meaningful. You can understand it. And then to follow it, week 10, the icon for that is not a Star Wars thing at all. It's a video game controller. So naturally that has folks keeping their eyes on video games up in arms because they're like, are we getting a big video game announcement on December 14th when that happens? And yeah, wouldn't that be nice? It would be great to get a date for Star Wars Hunters finally, which is supposed to be coming in 2022, and there's going to be either a young adult or a middle grade novel, I honestly cannot remember, for Star Wars Hunters as a tie-in that's coming out in June of 2022. So yeah, it certainly does make it seem like it's going to be a little ways into the year before we actually see it. But Jedi Fallen Order 2 sequel announcement, wouldn't that be spectacular? We already know that the Lego Star Wars Skywalker saga has a date of sorts, or at least a general range of early 2022, so it doesn't seem like that would be the place where we'd get an announcement about it. But yeah, so that one is probably the one that's causing the most chatter online and in social media, that particular video game week of December 14th. And then there's a pair of crossed lightsabers that look like they might well be High Republic lightsabers on December 21st. That's kind of cool because there was an initial run of High Republic merchandise, a couple of months ago, and if it had proved popular, the suggestion was that it might continue. So this seems like potentially a hopeful sign that there might be more High Republic stuff in the offing. And then finally on December 28th, well, this one makes perfect sense. It's a Boba Fett helmet that they're using as the icon since the Book of Boba Fett comes out the following day on December 29th, and yeah, maybe that's a day where we might get some more direct tie-in stuff to the Book of Boba Fett, but they're still keeping so much of that under wraps, and I don't think we're going to really learn anything more about it until we get to the Disney Investor Day, not Disney Investor Day, just the Disney Plus Day, on November 12th next month. So yeah, so that's basically the rundown of how the weeks are breaking down. And so far from the first 2 weeks, looking at all the different things that have been released, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, I only really sort of report on these things in terms of storytelling. Like, what do product descriptions tell us about characters, about plot lines, about details that are interesting from a story level perspective? And in this case, there's only one thing so far in the past 2 weeks where we have something resembling new information, and it's the description of an Ahsoka Tano action figure. And here's what it says. It says, a Clone Wars veteran and now wandering Jedi, Ahsoka Tano forges her own path in the galaxy, righting injustices that she discovers. So there's two things in particular I want to flag about that. First of all, the fact that they're referring to her as a Jedi. When she's left the Jedi Order, she did that at the end of season 5 of the Clone Wars, and she was decidedly not a Jedi when we saw her in season 7 of the Clone Wars, and she's not when she's in the Ahsoka novel by E.K. Johnston, and also not when she's in the Star Wars Rebels episodes as Fulcrum. No, like, she is not a Jedi, and she's not a Jedi when she's in The Mandalorian, although she's referred to as a Jedi. So I just think that's kind of fascinating, and I'm wondering where they're going with it. And the other thing is to refer to her as a wandering Jedi, but she's not part of the Jedi Order. Well, that actually makes her the equivalent of a Ronin, a masterless samurai. And I have a feeling that that is not coincidental in the slightest, and maybe that's the reason why they are taking pains to refer to her as a wandering Jedi and not a wandering Force user. Obviously, that doesn't roll off the tongue the same way, but I think you take my meaning. I certainly hope you do. And that's what I've got for you. I will be keeping an eye on these new merchandise releases again to look for new information, something that tells us more about storytelling in Star Wars based on the stuff they reveal. But for now, that's going to cover the first 2 weeks, and that is going to do it for this episode of the show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.